The stars looked different from this part of space. Captain Jack Harris stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, his eyes fixed on the view screen. The massive warship hummed with power beneath his feet. It was humanity's first true interstellar battleship, a monument to human engineering and determination. "Captain, we're approaching Nexus 7, said Officer Ben Reed from the navigation console. ETA 5 minutes. Jack nodded. "All hands to diplomatic stations. Remember, we're here to make friends, not waves." The crew moved with practiced efficiency. After 2 years of training together, they functioned like a single organism. The Defiant had been built in secret, a response to signals from deep space that suggested not all alien life was friendly. Still, their mission today was peace. Nexus 7 appeared on the view screen, a massive spinning wheel of metal and light. The neutral trading post served dozens of alien species, none of which had yet made direct contact with humans. Today would change that. "Sir, I'm detecting weapons fire near the station," Emma White called from the sensor station. Her voice was tense. "Several smaller vessels are under attack from a larger ship." Jack frowned. "Show me." The view screen shifted to show 3 small, sleek ships trying to evade a massive black vessel. The aggressor was firing relentlessly, its weapons cutting through the smaller ship's shields like paper. "Those are transport vessels," said Emma. "The attacking ship matches no known profile in the database the Alliance provided us." "Open a channel," Jack ordered. "Channel open." "Sir, this is Captain Jack Harris of the Earth ship Defiant. Cease fire immediately." No response came, but the attacking vessel turned slightly, as if noticing them for the first time. "Sir," Ben said quietly, "our orders are non-interference. First contact protocols are clear. And I'm also clear about not watching a massacre." Jack cut in. He turned to his weapons officer. "Paul, target their weapons systems only." Warning shot across their bow. Paul Green's fingers flew across his console. "Targeting." "Sir." The bridge fell silent. Every crew member knew what this meant. Humanity's first official action in galactic society would be military intervention. Fire. The Defiant's main cannon released a controlled burst of energy that streaked past the black ship's hull. The effect was immediate. The aggressor stopped firing at the smaller vessels and turned fully toward the Defiant. "They're scanning us," Emma reported. "Intensive scans." They seemed surprised. "Probably didn't expect to find humans out here," Jack said. "Hail them again." Before they could establish contact, the black ship fired. A purple beam shot toward the Defiant, but it dissipated against their shields. "Shields holding at 92%, reported Anna Miller from engineering. "Sir, their weapon signature is unusual. It seems to be designed to bypass standard Alliance shielding." Jack's eyes narrowed. "But not ours." "No, sir. Our frequency modulation is completely different." "Sir, they're charging weapons again," Paul warned. Jack stood from his chair. "Target their primary weapon array. Full power." The Defiant's main cannon hummed to life again, this time releasing a concentrated beam that struck the black ship precisely where its weapons protruded from the hull. The explosion was immediate. Secondary blasts rippled along the vessel's side. "Direct hit," Paul confirmed. "Their weapons are offline." "Sir, we're being hailed," Emma said, surprise evident in her voice. "Not by the attacker, by the station." Jack straightened his uniform. On screen. The view screen flickered to show a blue-skinned humanoid with large silver eyes. "Human vessel, this is Administrator Trell of Nexus 7. Your intervention was unexpected. We couldn't stand by and watch an unprovoked attack," Jack replied. Trell's expression was unreadable. "You have interfered in what you do not understand. The vessel you disabled belongs to the Vex Empire. They do not forgive such actions." "They were attacking unarmed ships," Jack countered. "Yes, the Vex do as they please in this sector. No one challenges them." Trell leaned forward. "Until today, The ships you saved carry representatives from the Alliance worlds. You have made powerful friends and terrible enemies. Jack felt the weight of his decision settling on his shoulders. Then I guess it's time we properly introduced ourselves to both. The smaller vessels were approaching the Defiant now. On a secondary screen, Jack could see the black ship drifting, disabled but not destroyed. Its crew would report back to this Vex Empire. Humanity had just announced its presence in the galactic community not with handshakes, but with weapons fire. Admiral Tom Wilson's face filled the view screen, his expression stern and unyielding. The communication delay between Earth and the Defiant made the silence after Jack's report feel even longer. "Let me get this straight, Captain Harris," Admiral Wilson finally said. "Your first act upon meeting alien life was to fire on their ships." "With respect, sir, we fired on an aggressor that was attacking defenseless vessels," Jack replied, standing firm on the bridge. "The Vex Empire is not a friendly power. They're bullies and conquerors, according to our new allies." "Allies we didn't authorize you to make." The Admiral's voice rose. "The mission was observation and cautious contact. Not whatever this is." The bridge crew kept their eyes on their stations, but Jack knew they were listening to every word. He couldn't blame the Admiral for his anger. The plan had been years of careful diplomacy before revealing Earth's military capabilities. "Sir, the situation changed the moment we arrived. Sometimes you have to adapt." Wilson sighed, the sound carrying across light years of space. "What's done is done. What's the status of these Alliance representatives you rescued?" "Currently aboard the Defiant. 6 species in total. They're eager to establish formal relations with Earth. And this Vex Empire." Jack hesitated. "The Alliance members believe they'll respond with force. The Vex don't tolerate challenges to their authority." Wilson rubbed his temples. "So we might have started an interstellar war." "Wonderful." The communication ended with orders to maintain position and await further instructions. Jack knew military bureaucracy well enough to understand this would take time. Time they might not have. In engineering, Anna Miller was deep in conversation with Trell and another alien, this one with copper-colored scales and 4 arms. They were examining data from the weapon exchange with the Vex ship. "It doesn't make sense," Trell was saying. "Your shields shouldn't have held against Vex weapons. They're designed to penetrate any known defensive system." Anna smiled, tucking the strand of red hair behind her ear. "Human technology developed independently. We never had access to Alliance or Vex tech to base our designs on. Our shield frequencies must operate on completely different principles." The scaled alien, who had introduced himself as Cult, manipulated a holographic display. "The weapons you used, they disrupted Vex systems in ways our attacks never have. Their ships are usually more resilient." Anna studied the readings. "Our weapons target power distribution nodes. Maybe Vex ships route power differently than Alliance vessels." Cult's eyes widened. "They do. We've never been able to exploit that weakness because our weapons are designed to counter their shields, not their internal systems." Anna realized what this meant. So human weapons are accidentally perfect against Vex technology. Trell nodded slowly. "It appears so. A cosmic coincidence that might change the balance of power." Meanwhile, in the conference room, Security Chief Mark Davis sat with the other Alliance representatives. Maps of the sector covered the large table. "The Vex have conquered 12 worlds in the past 5 cycles," explained a small gray alien named Pick. "They target specific resource-rich planets, strip them bare, and move on." "What resources?" Mark asked. "Primarily heavy metals and rare minerals," replied another representative, a tall, willowy being named Lorne, "elements they use in their biotechnology. Their ships are part machine, part living organism." Mark leaned forward. "And Earth? Would our planet interest them?" The room fell silent. Lorne exchanged glances with the others. "Based on the scans we've done, Earth would be considered a prime target. It has an unusual concentration of resources they value." Mark's blood ran cold. So by revealing ourselves, you may have accelerated their timetable. Pick finished. But they would have found you eventually. At least now you have allies. Jack entered the conference room, his conversation with Admiral Wilson weighing on him. Mark pulled him aside to share what he'd learned. So Earth might be in danger, Jack said quietly. Yes, sir. But Anna may have found something. Mark quickly explained the weapon's discovery. For the first time since the Vex encounter, Jack felt a spark of hope. He returned to the main table where the Alliance representatives waited. My government is concerned about our first contact, he admitted. But I believe we need to work together. Tell me everything about the Vex, their tactics, their weaknesses, their next likely targets. As the aliens began sharing intelligence, alerts sounded throughout the ship. Captain to the bridge. Emma's voice came over the comm. Jack rushed back to find the view screen showing 3 massive Vex warships emerging from what appeared to be artificial wormholes. They found us faster than expected, Emma said. They'll reach our position in 20 minutes. Jack took his command chair, his mind racing. They couldn't fight 3 warships, even with their technological advantage. Yet running would abandon Nexus 7 and everyone on it. Send a message to Earth. Tell them. He paused, weighing his words carefully. Tell them humanity is no longer alone in the universe, and we're about to prove what we're made of. He turned to his crew, seeing determination in their eyes despite the impossible odds. Battle stations. We're about to show the galaxy that humans don't scare easily. The Defiant shuddered as another blast from the Vex warships hit their shields. Jack gripped his captain's chair, watching the tactical display with sharp focus. 3 against 1 were terrible odds, but they were still in the fight. Shields at 63%. Anna reported from engineering, her voice steady despite the pressure. I'm rerouting auxiliary power. That last hit was weaker, Emma noted, studying her sensor readings. Their weapons are becoming less effective as they adjust to our shield frequency. Jack allowed himself a small smile. They're used to their weapons working the first time. They don't know how to adapt. The 3 Vex warships had surrounded the Defiant, trying to cut off escape routes. Their black hulls absorbed light rather than reflecting it, making them look like moving holes in space. Nexus 7 loomed behind them, the space station's inhabitants watching the battle with bated breath. Captain, I have an idea, Mark said from Tactical. The Vex ships are protecting their flanks from each other, but there's a blind spot beneath them. Their design doesn't allow for good coverage there. Jack nodded. Paul, prepare to dive on my mark. Full power to forward shields. Target the belly of the lead vessel as we pass. Paul's fingers danced across his console. Ready. Sir. Mark. The Defiant plunged downward, accelerating with surprising speed for a ship its size. The Vex vessels tried to adjust, but their formation worked against them as they struggled not to fire on each other. Now, Paul. The Defiant's main guns fired upward as they passed under the lead Vex warship. The shots hit vulnerable points on its underside, causing explosions to ripple along its hull. Direct hit, Paul shouted. Their power grid is fluctuating. Keep going, Jack ordered. Take us clear before they can regroup. The Defiant shot past the Vex formation, putting distance between them as the damaged warship struggled to maintain position. Sir, we're receiving a transmission, Emma said. It's from Lumen 6, an Alliance mining colony 3 light-years from here. They're under attack by Vex forces. Jack frowned. They're attacking somewhere else while engaging us here. No, sir, Emma clarified. This attack began before our battle. It's a separate Vex fleet. Trell, who had remained on the bridge, stepped forward. The Vex are opportunists. They're using this distraction to hit soft targets. Jack weighed his options. The logical choice was to retreat, regroup with Earth forces. But a distress call couldn't be ignored, especially now that they understood what the Vex did to conquered worlds. How many Vex ships at Lumen 6? He asked. 2 warships and several smaller vessels, Emma replied. Jack made his decision. Set course for Lumen 6, maximum speed. Sir, Ben questioned from navigation. What about the ships here? The one we damaged needs time to recover. The others will follow, but we'll have a head start. Jack turned to Trell. Tell your people to evacuate Nexus 7 temporarily. I suspect the Vex will take out their frustration on the station once we're gone. Trell nodded grimly and moved to a communication terminal. Sir, are you sure about this? Mark asked quietly. We're already damaged. Jack looked at his security chief. If Earth were under attack, wouldn't you want someone to answer the call? The journey to Lumen 6 took just under an hour at the Defiant's top speed. They arrived to find a grim scene. The small mining colony, built into the side of a mineral-rich asteroid, was under heavy bombardment. One Vex warship maintained position above the colony, methodically destroying its defenses, while another supervised smaller craft that were landing troops. They're not just bombing the colony, Anna observed. They're invading it. Scanning the asteroid, Emma reported. It's rich in rare Earth elements, and something our sensors can't identify. Some kind of exotic matter. The same composition as Earth's core, Colt said from where he stood with the other Alliance representatives who had gathered on the bridge. This confirms our fears about why they would target your world. Jack turned to Mark. Options for taking on 2 warships with our damaged vessel. Mark studied the tactical display. Conventional engagement would be suicide. But the mining colony has extensive tunnel networks. If we could lure the Vex ships closer to the asteroid's surface, they'd be vulnerable to attacks from both us and any remaining colony defenses. Jack finished. Ben, take us in. Low approach. Emma, scan for remaining defense batteries on the colony that might still be operational. Sir, I'm picking up life signs in the central hub, Emma said. About 200 colonists are still alive, barricaded in the deep tunnels. Jack's resolve hardened. All the more reason to succeed. Paul, target the engines of the landing craft first. Let's stop those troops from reaching the survivors. The Defiant swooped toward Lumen 6, its battle-scarred hull gleaming in the light of a distant sun. The crew worked with silent efficiency, each person knowing exactly what needed to be done. They had faced impossible odds before and survived. They would do so again. As they closed in on the unsuspecting Vex ships, Jack thought about Earth, about Admiral Wilson, about the responsibility that now rested on the Defiant's shoulders. They were no longer just explorers or diplomats. They were the first line of defense for humanity, and it seemed for countless other species as well. Weapons range in 30 seconds, Paul reported. Jack nodded. Let's show them what happens when you corner humans. The Defiant's engines flared as it accelerated toward the fight, carrying with it the hopes of a colony on the brink of destruction, and perhaps the future of galactic freedom. The victory at Lumen 6 changed everything. Word spread quickly through Alliance space about the human warship that had done the impossible, driven off 2 Vex warships, and saved an entire colony. 2 weeks later, the Defiant's conference room was filled beyond capacity with representatives from 12 different species. Jack stood at the head of the table, looking at the diverse gathering. Some were humanoid, others utterly alien in form, but all shared the same expression, hope mixed with desperation. The Alliance Council has authorized me to open formal negotiations, said Lorne, the tall, willowy alien who now served as the official Alliance envoy. We propose a mutual defense pact between Earth and the Allied worlds. Earth is honored, Jack said carefully. But I should remind everyone that I don't have the authority to sign treaties. That power rests with our government. But you speak for humanity now, said a blue-skinned representative with 4 eyes. You are the one who showed the Vex can be defeated. Jack noticed Lisa Brown, the ship's cultural officer, shift uncomfortably at these words. She'd warned him about this. In their eagerness to find a savior, the Alliance species were overlooking proper diplomatic channels. With respect, Lisa interjected, Captain Harris represents Earth's exploratory forces, not our entire government. Any treaty would need approval from Earth's United Council. The room filled with murmurs. some disapproving. Jack exchanged a glance with Lisa, grateful for her diplomatic skills. Perhaps, Lisa continued, we could draft preliminary terms to present to Earth. In the meantime, we can share tactical information to better coordinate our efforts against the Vex. This compromise seemed to satisfy the representatives, and the meeting broke into smaller groups discussing strategy. Jack pulled Lisa aside. Thank you for the save. They're putting too much faith in one ship. Lisa nodded. It's not just that. They're desperate. The Vex have been winning for decades, but we can't let them rush this, especially with what Rick discovered. Jack's expression darkened. The intelligence officer had brought troubling news just hours before the meeting. Have you told anyone else? Just Mark and Anna. I thought you should decide how to handle it. Jack nodded. Bring Rick and the others to my ready room after this meeting ends. An hour later, Jack sat with his senior officers and Rick Jones, the Defiance intelligence specialist. Rick's normally cheerful face was grim as he displayed his findings on the wall screen. I've been analyzing the data packets from our Alliance friends, Rick explained. Most of it checks out, but there are inconsistencies in the battle reports from the TA sector. What kind of inconsistencies? Mark asked. Reports of Vex fleet movements that don't match sensor data. Defense codes that changed minutes before attacks began. Rick pulled up a series of transmissions. And then there's this. Encrypted communications sent from Alliance command ships to unknown coordinates just before major battles. Battles the Alliance lost. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. You're saying there are traitors in the Alliance, Anna said finally. Rick nodded. At least one, possibly more, in high positions. Someone's feeding information to the Vex. Jack rubbed his temples. Do we know who? Not yet. But I've narrowed it down to the inner circle, someone with access to fleet movements and defense codes. That's only about 20 individuals, Lisa noted, including several in the conference room right now. Jack stood, pacing the small room. We can't accuse anyone without proof, and we can't ignore this either. There's another problem, Rick added. If we start investigating openly, we'll tip our hand. The mole will go into hiding or worse, accelerate their timeline. So we need to draw them out, Mark suggested. Feed false information through controlled channels and see who bites. Jack nodded slowly. We need to be careful. These negotiations are crucial for Earth's security, especially with the Vex showing interest in our planet. But we can't forge an alliance built on betrayal. What do we do, Captain? Lisa asked. Jack looked at each of his officers. These were the people he trusted with his life. We continue the negotiations, but we watch every word, every transmission. Rick, I want you to work with Mark on a plan to identify the mole. Anna, see if you can develop a secure communication system that only we can access. And the Alliance representatives. Lisa asked. We treat them as friends and allies, Jack said firmly, until proven otherwise. But we keep our cards close to our chest. We treat them as friends and allies, Jack said firmly, until proven otherwise. But we keep our cards close to our chest. The meeting adjourned, and Jack returned to the conference room, where the Alliance representatives were still gathered. He looked at their faces, aliens who had placed their hope in humanity in his ship. Among them was likely someone working for the enemy, someone who would happily see Earth fall to the Vex. The weight of responsibility felt heavier than ever. The Defiant had entered this conflict to save a few ships. Now they were entangled in galactic politics, potential betrayal, and the defense of their homeworld. As Jack resumed his place at the table, Lorne approached with a data crystal. Captain Harris, this contains the location of every known Vex base and fleet position. We offer this as a gesture of good faith. Jack accepted the crystal with a diplomatic smile, even as his mind raced with questions. Was this information accurate or carefully crafted misinformation? Was Lorne the traitor, or was it someone else watching this exchange? Thank you, Jack said. Earth appreciates your trust. Together, We will find a way to defeat the Vex threat. He meant every word, even if the path to that victory now seemed far more complicated than he'd ever imagined. Alarms blared throughout the Defiant as the ship rocked from another hit. Jack held onto his command chair, watching the tactical display with intense focus. The battle for Helios Prime had raged for 6 hours with no end in sight. Shields at 41%. Anna reported, her voice strained but steady. We've lost the starboard defense grid. 3 more Vex ships just dropped out of FTL. Emma called from sensors. They're moving to flank the Alliance cruisers. Outside the viewports, the space around Helios Prime was chaos. The massive Alliance shipyard, once the pride of their fleet, was now a battlefield. 2 other Alliance worlds had come under simultaneous attack, stretching their forces thin. The Defiant had rushed to defend the shipyard, their most crucial military asset. Status on those modifications, Paul? Jack asked, his eyes never leaving the display. Almost ready, sir, Paul replied from the weapons station. Anna's calculations are being integrated into the targeting system now. Over the past month, Anna had worked tirelessly with Alliance engineers to adapt the Defiant's weapons based on their discovery about Vex vulnerabilities. What had started as a coincidence, human weapons being effective against Vex ships, was now a deliberate advantage. Captain, Mark called, the Vex command ship is changing position. They're moving toward the main construction bay. Jack understood immediately. They're targeting the new Alliance battleships. Those vessels are our only hope of matching Vex firepower. Paul, status, Jack demanded. Modifications at 98%. Just a few more seconds. We don't have seconds, Jack said grimly. Target the Vex command ship with standard weapons, all power to engines. Then, take us between them and those battleships. The Defiant surged forward, its engines straining as it raced to intercept the massive Vex command vessel. The enemy ship was easily 5 times their size, bristling with weapons that could tear through the Defiant's weakened shields in seconds. They've noticed us, Emma said. They're charging weapons. Jack steeled himself. Hold course. The Vex command ship fired, a barrage of energy that streaked across space toward the Defiant. The bridge crew braced for impact. Now, Ben, Jack shouted. The Defiant rolled, presenting its undamaged port shields to the attack while maintaining its intercept course. The shields flared brilliantly but held. Shields at 22%, Anna reported. Modifications complete, Paul announced triumphantly. Target their primary power distribution node, Jack ordered. Fire. The Defiant's main cannons fired, but instead of the usual energy beams, they released concentrated pulses that rippled with a strange, shifting frequency. The pulses struck the Vex command ship, seeming to phase through its outer shields. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the massive vessel shuddered. Power fluctuations cascaded across its hull, and several of its weapon ports went dark. Direct hit to their power systems, Paul confirmed, excitement in his voice. Their shields are fluctuating, weapons at 40% capacity. Again, Jack ordered. The Defiant fired a second volley. This time, the effects were even more dramatic. The Vex command ship's propulsion system failed, leaving it drifting. Secondary explosions blossomed along its hull. All Allied vessels, this is Captain Harris, Jack transmitted. Target the Vex command ship with everything you've got. Their shields are down. The Alliance vessels responded immediately, redirecting their fire. Under the combined assault, the massive Vex ship began to break apart. The other Vex vessels are changing formation, Emma reported. They're retreating. A cheer went up from the bridge crew, quickly stifled as professionalism reasserted itself. Jack allowed himself a brief smile before turning to Paul. Transmit the weapon modification specifications to all Allied vessels. I want every ship equipped as soon as possible. Sir, Emma interrupted, her voice shaking slightly. I'm detecting something strange from the destroyed Vex ship. There's There's something alive in the debris. Alive? Some of the crew survived. Jack asked. No, sir. I mean the ship itself was alive. Or partly alive. I'm detecting organic components integrated with the technology. Anna moved to Emma's station, studying the readings. She's right. The Vex ship's core was biological. Some kind of neural network. Bring aboard a sample for study, Jack ordered. Full containment protocols. 4 hours later, Jack stood in the science lab, staring at the specimen they'd recovered. It pulsed faintly in its containment field, a mass of organic tissue interwoven with circuitry and metal components. It's still trying to interface with our systems, Anna explained. Even separated from the ship, it's attempting to establish connections. What exactly are we looking at? Jack asked. A neural node, replied Colt, who had joined their study. But not artificial. This was once a living being, converted into a component of the ship. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. You mean the Vex aren't just using biotechnology. They're turning living beings into their ships. Colt nodded gravely. Now you understand why we fight so desperately. The Vex don't just conquer worlds. They harvest populations for conversion. Each of their ships contains thousands of altered life forms, their consciousness subsumed into the Vex collective. Jack looked back at the neural node with horror. This is why they target populated worlds. Yes, Colt confirmed. And why they're so interested in Earth. Your species has an unusually compatible neural structure. You would make ideal components. Jack's communication unit chimed. Captain to the bridge. We're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. As Jack hurried to the bridge, his mind raced. They'd won a battle today, the first major victory against the Vex. But the war had just become even more urgent. They weren't just fighting for territory or resources. They were fighting to prevent humanity from becoming components in a living fleet of nightmares. Admiral Wilson's face on the view screen looked older than Jack remembered. The weeks of crisis had taken their toll on Earth's military commander. Our long-range sensors have confirmed it, Captain, the Admiral said grimly. A Vex armada is gathering at the edge of our solar system. Conservative estimates put their numbers at 30 warships, plus support vessels. Jack felt the blood drain from his face. When will they arrive? 5 days, maybe less. We're mobilizing everything we have. But Wilson's voice trailed off. They both knew Earth's defenses were no match for such a force. The Alliance fleet is scattered after the coordinated attacks, Jack said. Even if they could regroup, they wouldn't reach Earth in time. Wilson nodded. That's why I'm contacting you. Earth's Security Council has approved a plan. A desperate one. As the Admiral outlined the strategy, the bridge crew of the Defiant listened in stunned silence. When the transmission ended, no one spoke for several long moments. It's a suicide mission, Mark finally said. Jack didn't disagree, but it might be Earth's only chance. The plan was audacious. The Defiant would allow itself to be discovered by Vex scouts, then lead them on a chase through their own territory, transmitting false information about Earth's defenses. The goal was to divide the Vex fleet, leading a portion of it into a trap near Jupiter, where Earth's hidden fleet waited. If we succeed, Jack said, we reduce the odds from impossible to merely terrible. And if we fail? Emma asked quietly. Then Earth faces the full Vex armada, Jack replied, and humanity becomes their next harvest. The decision wasn't really a decision at all. Within hours, the Defiant was underway, heading deep into Vex-controlled space. For 3 days, they moved cautiously through enemy territory, sensors at maximum sensitivity. They avoided 2 Vex patrols before finally encountering their target, a small Vex scout ship. They'd spotted us, Emma confirmed as the scout changed course to intercept. Good, Jack said. Let them get a good look, then run. Make it look like we're afraid. The Defiant fled from the scout, broadcasting deliberately sloppy encrypted messages about Earth's vulnerable defenses and skeleton fleet. The Vex ship pursued, relaying information back to its fleet. They're taking the bait, Rick reported from his intelligence station. "I'm detecting increased communications between Vex vessels. They're diverting ships from the main armada to pursue us." "How many?" Jack asked. Rick studied his display. 12 warships so far. They're forming a hunting pack. Jack allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. 12 ships that wouldn't be attacking Earth directly. But it wasn't enough. They needed to draw off more. Time to be more provocative, Jack decided. "Paul, next time we encounter a Vex vessel, I want you to disable it, not just run from it. Let's show them we're a threat worth chasing." The opportunity came sooner than expected. A Vex frigate appeared on their sensors, moving to cut off their escape route. "They're faster than we anticipated," Ben observed from navigation. "They're learning our patterns." "Good," Jack said. "That means we have their attention. Prepare to engage." The battle was brief but decisive. The Defiant's modified weapons tore through the Vex frigate's defenses, leaving it crippled but intact. As they sped away, their sensors detected a surge of communication activity throughout Vex space. "I think we just made them angry," Emma said, studying the readings. "More ships are breaking off from the main armada." 15. No, 18 vessels now in pursuit. Jack nodded grimly. "Keep broadcasting those false defense plans. Make them think Earth is right for the taking, but that we might warn them if we get away." For the next day, the Defiant played a deadly game of cat and mouse with the Vex pursuit fleet. They would allow themselves to be nearly caught, then use their superior maneuverability to escape, always leading the Vex ships toward Jupiter. The toll on the crew was immense. No one had slept more than a few hours at a stretch. Systems were strained from constant high-speed maneuvers. But beneath the exhaustion was a steely determination. Every Vex ship they led away from Earth was a small victory. On the 5th day, as they approached the outer edge of Sol system, Jack gathered his senior officers in the ready room. "We've done better than expected," he told them. 23 Vex warships are now following us, leaving only 7 with the main armada. Earth stands a fighting chance. "What about us?" Anna asked. The question hung in the air. Jack looked at each officer in turn. These people had become more than colleagues. They were family. "Our job is to lead these ships into the trap at Jupiter, where Earth's fleet is waiting. Once there, we fight until we can't fight anymore." No one flinched. No one objected. They had all known the likely outcome of this mission from the start. "It's been an honor serving with all of you," Jack said quietly. "The honor has been ours, Captain," Mark replied, speaking for everyone. As they returned to the bridge, Emma called out from her station. "Captain, I'm detecting an unusual signal. It's coming from the direction of Jupiter, but it doesn't match any Earth protocols." Jack frowned. On screen, the message was simple, text only. "Stand by for reinforcements. You are not alone." Is this some kind of Vex trick? Jack wondered aloud. "Sir," Emma said, her voice filled with disbelief, "I'm detecting ships emerging from FTL near Jupiter. Hundreds of them. They're Alliance vessels." Jack stared at the tactical display as it filled with friendly signatures. Somehow, against all odds, the Alliance had gathered a fleet and reached Earth in time. "We have an incoming transmission," Emma reported. "It's from the Alliance flagship." The view screen activated to show Lorne standing on the bridge of an Alliance battleship. "Captain Harris, did you really think we would let humanity face this alone? The Earth gambit worked. You've led the Vex into our trap." For the first time in days, Jack felt something like hope. The Defiant wasn't on a suicide mission after all. They were the bait in a much larger trap, one that might actually work. "All hands," Jack announced, his voice steady. "Prepare for battle. We're no longer alone."